Welcome everyone to Coach to You. I am your host, Coach Regina, and I am back with another topic. Now, today, guys, we're going to be talking about mindfulness and meditation. Okay, this is one of the topics that is really going to just kind of wow you because when you think about mindfulness, you think about just kind of being aware of your surroundings, kind of keeping your head on the swivel, if you will. But we're going to go a little bit deeper. I've actually researched and actually practiced this in my own life as well. So I'll be able to give you a little bit of tidbits from my own personal experiences as well as extensive research on the matter as well. So before we jump in, I want to go ahead and give my disclaimer, okay? I am not a licensed healthcare professional, although I'm a student of psychology. All content and information on my channel stems from my own personal experience and extensive research, and is for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be considered professional medical advice. If you feel you have a mental health condition, seek the guidance of a professional healthcare professional. Okay, sorry, got a little tongue tied there. Okay, guys, so we're just gonna go ahead and jump in. Okay, all right. So mindfulness and meditation. Okay, so again, when I just mentioned when we talk about mindfulness, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of immediately get to this sense of should I be on the radar about things. And so basically, I want to give a little bit more of an in-depth understanding on what mindfulness is. So from a brief understanding of it, mindfulness is when you're able to observe your environment and your surroundings and become less reactive and controlling or feel the need to predict or change anything. Then you are practicing mindfulness. Essentially, it's what involves being fully present and aware of your surroundings without judgment or reactivity. Okay? So that's the gist of what mindfulness is. Okay? Key aspects of mindfulness is noticing your thoughts and feelings without judging them, simply observing them as they arise. That is not such an easy task. Okay, let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. When you notice yourself feeling anxious, fearful, emotional, any sort of thoughts that may arise, your natural tendency is not to judge, not to judge. On the contrary, it's more to become judgmental, and it's because a lot of it is societal conditioning. You know, I'm not going to tell you that people are like mind readers or ESP or anything like that, but people can kind of feel judgment or um, like a criticalness that comes from us in our it comes makes it from our behavior, how we tilt our head, how we cross our shoulders, or how we roll our eyes when someone's speaking and things like that. It can though we're kind of already conditioned to feel judgment from people when they behave in that manner. So essentially, because we behave as mirrors, and the way we see others is often the way we see ourselves, we've kind of conditioned ourselves to behave in that way to automatically judge ourselves when we are behaving in that regard. So mindfulness, again, it means paying attention to what is happening in the current moment rather than looking at it from a place of judgment. Okay, so if you're in the current moment, you're examining what you feel. Okay, it's paying attention to what is happening in the current moment, not past hurts, traumas, past abuses, past betrayals, and things of that nature. Because once you're coming from the subconscious, and essentially that's where a lot of our emotions, the trauma, the unresolved emotional conflicts, and different things like that are lodged. Okay, so when we're coming from that place, it's easy to judge ourselves because we already have neural pathways that are already kind of built in to help us navigate these different things that are a sense of familiarity to us. Okay, so when we look at it from a place of just being in the present moment rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we reduce reactivity. Now, this is very, very key, okay? Because if we're coming from trauma, we're more reactive, okay? Rather than responding to what's happening in our environment, we become reactive. And so reactivity shows up where we're hyper aroused, we're more anxious, we more snappish towards other people, and we are less aware of our internal state at that time. At that moment, the situation or the person is the threat. And just like I've talked about in my other podcasts, whenever our body senses a threat, our physiological state begins to dump cortisol hormones in our body, which basically tells our state of being to react to the threat either through fight or flight. Okay? The problem with that is that if we can only be in one state at a time. If your body is generally conditioned to protect you, but it's having to take on all this responsibility to fight off the threat, then you are leaving yourself open to opportunistic infections, disease, panic attacks, other emotional triggers that may be associated with the fact that your body is trying to protect itself. Fight the fight or flight rather than actually protect itself. Okay. So again, the objective is to reduce reactivity. And the way we do that is by being more aware of our internal state rather than looking at what the person is doing, rather than seeing the threat, okay? Is at that point we become a less impulsive and reactive to the external stimuli, okay? So I want to make sure I give you all the tidbits on this because, I mean, I really, really, really have been through this in my own life. I've researched this. I looked into this. And so I really want to make sure I give you these pointers because when you think about mindfulness and meditation, this is how these things show up in our life, right? But when you're practicing mindfulness, like I mentioned, you're less reactive, okay? You're less judgmental. You're less pessimistic, okay? And you take yourself from that egotistic state to a more self-aware state where you can respond to the situation from a more calm and level-headedness, okay? So when we talk about meditation, okay, meditation is about slowing down those brain waves that cause us to become hyper aroused or hyper reactive, if you will. So we want to look at it from that perspective that when we become less aroused to exactly what is occurring in our inner and outer world, our brain emits certain vibrational frequencies that align with joy, peace, happiness, and all those other higher level of energies, right? But when we're more reactive to the situation that's coming up in our life, then we're putting off fear, anger, anxiety, anxiousness, dread. We have all these other different lower level of energies that are coming about, and then people can feel that. Like I mentioned earlier, people can feel that, okay? They can feel that. The whole objective when it comes to understanding mindfulness is that you tell yourself on a continuum, I am safe. All is well in my world. There's not a threat. I can respond rather than react to life adversities. And so that's the part of mindfulness that helps us to understand that when we reduce those negative emotions, we increase positive emotions by telling ourselves these type of statements that essentially help us to appreciate life where we are in that by being in the present moment, as I mentioned earlier. When we also do is we tend to appreciate what our body is doing for us. Okay, we get to appreciate the people that are in our world as well. When we're practicing mindfulness, we are not 100% in a state of woe is me. Okay, we're not looking at this person's not fulfilling my obligation. This person's not doing what I want them to do. My needs are not being met, or my bills are not being, or this, or whatever the case may be. Because as soon as you step out of mindfulness into reactivity, woe is me, or victimizing, you're setting yourself up. Okay. Excuse me. So the way the brain operates, or the way the brain responds to that, is it emits different frequencies depending on what's going on in your conscious state. Meaning, if you are happy, depressed, sad, anxious, or sleepy, your brain emits certain frequencies that essentially begin to adjust your physiological state at that time. And if you're not allowing your body to, your brain to emit the proper frequencies by being able to practice mindfulness and calm that hyper aroused state, you are putting off energies that people can pick up. And not only are people picking them up, because I just mentioned the mirror effect, but also the universe picks it up. So what happens is, according to the universal laws, like attracts like. So when you emit those energies of anger, frustration, pessimism, judgment, criticalness, and things like that, you send signals to the universe that I want more of that in my life. And so, rather than experiencing the abundant life that we were designed to, as we go through life's difficulties and our soul evolves and we overcome them and we get to enjoy the fruits of our suffering, we actually come to this place of loving ourselves, loving others, showing compassion, being kind, being considerate, and things like that. If instead of that, when you operate from those hyper aroused states or the lack of mindfulness, you put yourself on a continual cyclic experience of repetitive behaviors and repetitive life experiences, and then we wonder why things keep happening. And the reason that is because we're continuously emitting the same type of energies out because we won't allow ourselves to deal with our soul's conflict. And so when you come from the place of mindfulness, you allow yourself to examine your own inner state without judgment, as mentioned earlier, removing that aspect of being critical, looking at other people as they're the threat, rather than examine your own soul's, internal state. And you allow yourself to calm down as opposed to being hyper aroused. You're able to respond rather than react. You're not coming from a place of judgment anymore, but you're now coming from a place of trying to understand the other person's position or understand what the universal life concept, what is being asked of me at that time. Because every experience that we go through in life, even though they're coming from our own energies that we're emitting, karma, other things that the people of our connections, some of our things that we deal with are because we're dealing with other people's souls corrections. So even though we're dealing with these things, as we do our internal work through mindfulness and meditation, we can allow ourselves to come to a more calmer state and examine our surroundings rather than being so reactive to them. Okay? So let's kind of jump in a little bit. I'm going to just tap just very briefly into meditation. Okay? So meditation is about essentially slowing down those brain waves. Okay? It's about consciously choosing to place yourself into a more calm environment where you can allow your internal state to recover. Okay, we live in societal conditions where life is constantly bombarded. We're bombarded with our children. We're bombarded with work. We're bombarded with bills, with friendships, relationships, and different things like that. And so the mind needs to get to a state where it can decompress from all this. And a lot of times it only happens when we're asleep. But the problem with that is that when we're sleeping, we're in an unconscious state, but we're processing information that happened throughout our day. And so if we can take moments to consciously decompress by practicing meditation, what we can actually do is we can reframe those situations and give our mind a different a way of thinking about them rather than the information that it was left with. Whoa, this person hurt me, or think bills are just out of control, or life is etc., etc. Whatever story we tell ourselves, right? If we can practice mindfulness, we can reframe the situation and look at it from what universal concept, what we're supposed to learn from it based off of those universal laws, what soul's internal work that needs to be done, right? and then allowing ourselves to reframe that situation and then be left with a different story that we telling ourselves as opposed to the victimizing that we're generally conditioned to. Okay, so when we practice mindfulness, okay, we are consciously choosing to put ourselves in that state of relaxation, where we're allowing, different brain waves of alpha, beta, theta, which delta, different slower brain waves rather than the faster brain waves that may have been in that list. You allowing yourself to come down from those slower brain waves, and in that, the body is not constantly dumping those stress hormones into our body based off of the chemical responses that it receives from the brain. Okay, so when you allow yourself to decompress, taking breathing techniques, then you're able to process things from a different position at that point. You're breathing, you're more mindful, you're more cognizant of your surroundings, right? And you're able to take the information that you're now examining from, and you're able, we talked about reframing it. Now when you decompress, if you have to wait until bed, you can do it on your own by practicing meditation. And now you're telling yourself, these things in that time of meditation, that all is well in my life. I find myself easily overcoming reactive situations. Each and every day, I am growing into the best version of myself. My friendships are valuable. My family is valuable. I am supported. I am guided. I am loved. And these type of affirmations, the more that you say them repetitiously, according to the research, our brains are neuroplasticity. The brain has the ability to rewire itself based off of the information that we send it. Now watch this. That is good or bad. That's the case, right? So if you're constantly feeding yourself gossip, anger, frustration, victimizing, your brain is taking on that information, processing it from the subconscious, like I mentioned earlier, and it's constantly feeding off those chemical responses, and you're giving yourself the same life experiences. Whereas if you decide to practice meditation, on the other hand, and you're slowing down those brain waves, right? You're now giving yourself new information that is opposite of the programming in the subconscious mind. And if you do that repetitiously, the brain has the ability to rewire itself, and in return you emit different signals, and in return you begin to experience life, a different life circumstances. Okay, so guys, that was meditation and mindfulness. You guys, that is something that I practice in my own life. And because I share these tips and techniques with you, I want you to know, like I say all the time, I'm not a scholar in it by way. Sometimes I have to go to my research here and kind of, go back over my notes for what I put together to be able to share with you guys. But I do really extensive research on these topics and things like that, because these are things that we were not aware of, and these are tools that we did not have. So on the podcast, I want to be able to share these things with you so that you understand that you too can heal. Okay, my name is Coach Regina. I want to thank you guys for listening. This is my podcast. Take care. Have a good day.